Okay.
So,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a concern. There's a lot of different things. Contacting the vendors for the Makers Farmers Market, booking the rides and stuff that the kids do. Last year we had an issue because it was double booked and they didn't provide what they said they were going to for us because they had booked another community day. So there's just a lot of things like that we would need help with and to get it done.
Do we have like a cookie cutter sheet? So since Tracy's not here, do we have something we could just hand some of us? Just yeah.
You have a
Yeah,
task.
Tracy and I usually get all of it, so.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So you
Oh,
can
yeah.
help divvy up tasks. that
You
we
a
can help you with?
delegator, Ms.
Possibly.
Kate? You a delegator?
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I think it's imperative.
And what's the
for
date?
our community
September
that
what?
we're-
28th,
28, yeah.
it's a
If
Saturday.
we do need help.
What was it?
Summer
September?
there.
9/28, yeah.
Yeah, 9/28.
Okay.
So that's approval to go on for both, for community day then?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything else on that, Sean? You good on that? Community
No,
days?
they got it.
All right. 5, discussion correction of the planning commission appointment dates. So what I did was I reached out to PSAS just to get some guidance here. We have an appointment that's on there, Jared Landis, his term expired 12/31/23. But we also had blanket appointments that would expire. I thought I brought one of these for everybody. Sean, I think I have one for you too. You want to pass one down to him? And it just shows, when they all expired. I came in, got the 2017 meeting minutes, and it was an expiration. The seat that we had thought was being filled by Jarrett was actually filled by Mr. Hartline. He finished a term for Mr. Buick. Mr. Buick, I guess, had resigned for some reason, or maybe got ill or whatever, so we replaced him with Mr. Hartline, and then we again put Mr. Hartline on the board. I think it was on 23. They was subsequently replaced with, I believe, Ed Myers. I just gave you my cheat sheet. I believe it was Ed Myers. So what we need to do is stagger out this term. I did bring it. My wife.
You could just put it in the middle. I'll look at it.
Okay. So that's what we needed to do. We were just gonna stagger it. So how we can accomplish this, talking to PSATs, is
When
not
you say stagger, you mean so that
every year,
there's
you can
5
have
people
yes,
on the planning commission,
correct.
and you're suggesting that we have no more than 2 people ending at the same time.
So that's
Their terms
actually,
ending, is that what you're saying? Because
Yes.
if you have 5 and there are 5 people and they're 4-year appointments.
correct.
Okay.
And if you look at it, they all expire every 4 years. That part is correct. Where we got hamstrung here was with Mr. Armstrong finishing up a 2-year term. There's no explanation for it. I'm not sure. It doesn't go back that far. But we did correct it with Jared here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So what we have is in the handbook, you should only have 2 expire a year. It's not healthy to turn over an entire board every single time. So in this case, what we have is we have Mr. Marriott, Mr. Reed. They expire in 4 years. That's okay to let them go. Mr. Buckman, Mr. Myers, they will also expire in 4 years. But if we put this
But not at
appointment,
the same time, 27 and 26.
they can expire at the same time because it's only those two times, right? But where it's 24, 25, 26, 27, it now puts this seat here expiring where we'll have 3 being replaced at that one time. So reaching out to PSATs, I asked them what we could do here, and we could stagger this. So what we could do is make an appointment for 2 years here on this one here, and then after this, they're always gonna be staggered to where there's never more than 2 expiring at one time. It's just a way for us to correct this right here, or we're gonna just keep running down the road on the same exact issue, 3 people coming up. And in the handbook, it does say you should not be replacing more than 2. So this is a correction of the meeting minutes. So basically, we have a person sitting here that's making decisions. If he makes decisions on motions, that it essentially doesn't carry any weight.
When was Joe Joe Buck's term ended in 21.
Buick.
Or Buick, Joe Buick. So his term ended, and we had this thing with Dave's filling of the seat. Okay. So that was a 4-year term from 22. It would extend from 22 to 25.
If it was a 4-year term from 22. So it expired in 22, that Joseph Buick seat. This here continuation of 2018 was from a previous set. So this Joseph actually expired in 22. He got reassigned, Dave did, in 23. So it would be expiring in 26.
Okay.
So what's the remedy? How are you gonna fix it?
Essentially, we gotta either reappoint Mr. Landis or put someone there, but the remedy is to do it for a 2-year seat. This will correct that, never expiring more than 3 at one time, and then they're staggered out from here on out. And it's just a way to correct it. So I'm not saying let's reappoint or not reappoint now. I mean, this here is just the discussion. So next week, we would reappoint or appoint a candidate. Mr. Landis is here for us to speak to, so I imagine, can we reach out to Jared and have him come next week, please? You okay with that, Ms. Fisher, Sean, you guys good with that?
The only thing I'm thinking is, we also, in your summary, you said we don't want to turn over too many people at the same time. So that would mean that we've already appointed 3 new people, Myers, Reed, and Marriott. That 2-year term that you're suggesting so that we have the proper staggering, potential, I would suggest it's either Jared Landis or Rob Keenan.
I
Because that would keep 2 people consistent on the planning commission. So, does that make sense?
No, it
What I'm
absolutely
saying.
does. When I talked to Rick Buckman about this before, that was his big concern as well. He just didn't want to turn the whole thing over.
Right.
You know, he's got to run the whole show by himself, and
Okay.
it's difficult.
Okay.
So again, I didn't have a preference of who was in that
Right,
seat.
okay.
It was
It could just be Jared. The point is, we need to finalize
Right.
the planning commission end dates so that they, no more than 2 people roll off in the same year.
Right. Ideally, they were saying to have 1. So when I spoke with Scott, it was stagger a Buck Reed or a Bob Myers. Cut him back a year, so now it's 1 time.
Right.
1 person, you're just doing 1, so you always got that experience on the board. You know, ideally. So this was just the easiest solution, the 2 years here, you could
Yep.
put him for 3 and put this guy at 3. It was just, what did you wanna do?
You should run it past Ken too. Make sure that however you're making these adjustments, they're proper.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we can run it by, I just wanted to address it, so we were all on the same page, everybody understood what it was. Again, just trying to straighten everything out, you know, down the line there. You can have that, I have it on my computer.
Okay,
Because to Lisa, to your point, you put 3 new people on this
Right.
board.
Correct?
So, anyway.
yeah. And it may just be reappointing Jared. All I think Bill's saying is that we have to tighten up that
Which is correct.
end date of Jared in the minutes going back. His term was supposed to end 23. and then it was brought up that that was a typo. And the minutes really are the gospel, and that's what we should adhere to, are the minutes, even if it was a typo, because they were approved, so.
Yeah.
It's really just an administrative thing and making sure that we don't have too many people rolling off at the same time. Okay,
Okay, everybody got that? Okay. we're
so
good.
what is our task for next week?
So our task for next week is there reappointment or appointment for
Okay.
that seat right there? Because I said, like, I agreed with what you said. I don't wanna, we don't have to stick a new person in, or I would rather
Mhm.
not, if I'm not mistaken.
Administrative effort.
Yeah, Keenan had like 8 years of experience or something like that, so I know both of them have been on there, so we can go from there. It
Okay,
was just fixing this in this meeting, addressing it in the next.
okay.
Everybody understood that? Everybody good? Who's on first? All right, good. All right, so old business, fire EMS tax.
So yeah, so this item, is there any confusion about the history of this thing? Or do we need to make any changes to it? As far as how, so back in 2021, we had, if memory serves me correctly, there were funds that were shared between Plymouth Ambulance, Harleysville Ambulance, and the firehouse.
Correct.
And then there was a request for that to be moved to the firehouse, and that's what we've done. Pat, Pat, are you here? Yeah. Do you want to comment on the history of this? Is that accurate?
Well, I was the one who fought for it, because ambulance is built for their services, so I just thought the fire company should get the full fire tax. And well, finally, after about 4 years of fighting for it, I got it. And what they decided to do was the township used to give the fire company a donation every year. So instead of the donation, we got the full fire tax, and the donation was gonna go to the ambulance, because at that time then, Green Lane Harleysville ambulance became the other ambulance, and they're out because they couldn't staff it. So they ended up putting Plymouth ambulance in here for the full township. So now there's only one ambulance that has to be dealt with. So they're supposed to get the donation, and the fire company was getting the full fire tax. There was no increase in any
Did we pay a
tax.
fire tax today?
What's that?
Did we pay a fire tax today?
Yeah.
Wait, is it in our,
Yeah, I think so.
it's in our local tax? Like,
Yeah.
a portion of that goes to
Yeah.
fire tax? Okay.
I don't think it's a fire tax. It was a separate fire tax, was the discussion.
I think it's titled emergency services tax.
It is, that's exactly what it is, Mr. Corcoran. It's titled emergency services tax, and that's what was split between everybody, and it was, I
Right.
think, .11 mils for it or something.
Right, and now the fire company gets the full.
Right. And then it was in April, it was discussed, a fire tax, because that's when I was in here with you, Mr. Corcoran, and you were saying the same thing I was, about the reallocation of funds. It would have made more sense because of the billing of services.
But nobody was asking for an increase in the tax. We just wanted to get the
We
full
wanted
tax.
to, oh, and I was with you 100%. We wanted to do reallocation of funds. It was a separate fire tax was also discussed. That's reflected in the April meeting minutes there too. It's actually referenced several times
So that,
throughout the year.
so that's 2021 you mentioned. So the emergency services tax today, like in '23, that was collected with our tax payments, how much money was it? And did it get transferred to the fire department?
Yeah, I think it all got handled, okay, and
Do we know how much it
And
was?
we don't have a fire tax.
No, there's no fire
Right,
tax.
we
It's
don't
in the
have
EMS
a
It's
tax.
an
yeah.
emergency services tax.
Yeah.
Right.
the taxes didn't go up. Taxes were not increased,
Okay.
okay? I just want to be clear, because, I mean, I saw some stuff on social media that, was a little concerning. I just want to make sure that we're all okay.
There was never a problem, Sean. What was discussed was the denial that the tax was discussed. Again, it was in April, it was discussed. There's never been a problem. We're in 2024. I'm not rehashing 21.
Well, I could see if somebody said emergency services versus fire tax, that you could think that they potentially were, a layman like myself would think that they were two separate taxes.
I think
So-
the terminology confused a lot of people.
Yeah, so if we're
Yeah.
just saying there's an emergency services tax, and since '21, it's been coming into the township
Yeah.
and reallocated to the fire.
No, not since 21. That's when I started fighting for it.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was
okay. What year did it
22 was
happen?
actually changed.
It was actually like the end of 2022 or the beginning of 2023, I believe.
Okay, so only 1 year you've gotten?
Only so far 1 year, yeah,
1
I
year.
believe we got
Yeah.
1 year.
Okay.
We're not through the full other scope of it yet, so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I have to go back. I mean, I looked at the budget with Tracy back in December, and I haven't thought about it, so I don't recall what my notes are on it.
Okay.
Okay.
Then I think we're good on this, we can move on.
Schoolhouse grant update. So I had reached out to the gentleman with the LSA grant. The playground part of the equipment had been ordered, and it was also installed. It was registered with the state as well, with the prevailing wage. So I did see that. I think I sent you that information on that. Okay, so I write my notes. I had a conversation with both Kate and Steve in regards to the status of the remaining equipment, and we are waiting for the new equipment to be ordered. Steve was made aware of this, that additional equipment was coming. He would like to be kept in the loop moving forward, because I think after the first piece of equipment was put in, he went ahead, backfilled over there, planted new seed.
He started putting everything down for the new playground, so he put a pause to that for right now,
Yeah.
when we get the quotes for the new playground equipment that Parks Board is requesting.
So, and that's what he's waiting on now, the grantor's waiting on that now. And I think I had said to you, there's a quick turnaround with this grant, since we're approved with it. If our vendor actually bills us and they say, hey, you got 30 days to pay this bill, we can go ahead, submit that to them. They'll go ahead and reimburse us the funds for it within the week, he says. So we would never actually have to expend the funds ourselves.
Okay.
That's just,
I can look at that.
that.
And that's, so I'm confused, sorry.
Go ahead.
Because this topic says schoolhouse grant.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with
so
the
it-
playground equipment?
It was all one, it was all in one. So when he sent me this email, it was,
Who's he?
Mr. Dishman, he's the grantor
Okay.
from the state. So when he had sent me all this, it was all part of one and the same.
Mhm.
So I just went through them, so the grant update is what I initially had here. So I'm just,
For the schoolhouse, it's let's be specific, it's the $100,000.
so we're gonna go to the schoolhouse grant now. I was updating everybody on the grant in general. So the grant, when I spoke about it, was the playhouse or the schoolhouse.
Playground is a separate
And the
grant.
playground.
Separate
It's a separate grant than the
Okay.
schoolhouse grant, though.
Okay, so this was just the information he gave it to me, so I broke it in half here.
Okay.
So the grant for the house, so as it turns out, we have several options for the house out front. We don't need to rush and use these funds at all. As it turns out, we have the grant money till 2026. He says it's actually a good thing we didn't use the funds. If we were to use the funds now, you can't come back. Once that project is started, you don't come back and ask for more grant funds. What we should do, I was warned not to use it. He says, what we should do is go out, figure out, because I told him the issue the community had here, we should figure out what we want to do with this building, get the numbers all together for whatever that project will be in the future, and we can hang on to this 100,000, we're not going to lose it, and we can reapply in 2025 for additional funding, as we know.
Is that a reapplication for additional funding, or it's a whole separate grant?
So it'll work, it's a separate grant. He told me, he goes, I'll walk you right through filling it out. It's basically an amendment to it, so I can apply for another one. So let's say this building costs $600,000, whatever we're gonna do to it. We have 100 grand now, we can go ahead and reapply in 2025 for additional funding. Let's say we don't get it all, we don't have enough to cover it. We can still hang on to it. 2026 comes, he reaches out, hey Lamon, what are you doing? Your permit's about, or your grant fund's about to expire. I say to him, hey, listen, we're planning on applying for more funding to try and get more here. He said, you can't guarantee any of this, but these are our options, is what he said. But there is another round of grant funding. It's coming back out in September of this year, 24, July of 25, and 26, and it's closing out in November of 26. So there is plenty of time. We don't need to rush. We can do what we want to do, our due diligence here on, what we want to actually accomplish with this project here. Spoke to him about the municipal complex, or our building here. There's grants for this as well. So if it's 1.5 mil, we can apply for grants for this. Doesn't mean you're gonna get 1.5, but it might not cost 1.5 either if we're not adding, different items to it. So we have plenty of options here, and it just comes down to, what does the community wanna do? I think in the one meeting, we got an absolute no. In another meeting, we had 4 or 5 people say yes, and it just turned out to be a real hot button issue. But
I
I think
would
this
just
would give us,
suggest that this gentleman that spoke to you, make sure you have it in writing. Because if you don't have it in writing on a grant, that grant can disappear.
absolutely, so
So
he,
make sure you have something that says it's good to 2026.
I do, yeah, but actually, we all do, it's
Okay.
actually in
Yeah, we
Mr.
have the
Frisco's name.
agreement.
And the agreement is
With
to
the- They gave
26?
us an
That's
agreement
correct.
for the grant, because my concern when I read the grant was if we wanted to slow this down while we figure out what's really the right approach to take for the building, and make sure that most of the community's in agreement, I don't think we're ever gonna get everybody
No.
in agreement, it's about a matter of how much satisfaction we can get out of the community, and can we get additional funding, so, by slowing it down, when I looked at the agreement, there was no schedule of doing the work. So I had, my question was, if we have to stick to a timeline, the agreement said if you substantially change the project, you have to get it approved by
Correct.
the grant office. So I just wanted to know what substantial means and make sure that we were in a complete understanding that we still would like the money, we know we wanna do something with it. We just didn't wanna be forced into doing something quickly that could potentially cost the taxpayers a lot of money. So, especially if there's more grants available for helping to take care of it. So, we just wanna make sure we're doing the right process, that's in the best interest of the township.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because he did send me an email and he says, exactly what you said. You gotta kinda adhere to the project, whatever you're writing in here, you gotta, you gotta be on it, or you have to pay the funds back if you don't do what you're telling them you're gonna do. So the original scope of work is, the proposed project will restore and renovate the building for community use and make it ADA compliant, with an emphasis on the restoration of the historic integrity of the building. So we gotta be careful here as far as putting this back to a historic building. That's where these numbers climb dramatically, but we also can't deviate from this plan. We have to, be able to
In order to
reach out to
deviate,
them.
we have to submit
Absolutely,
additional paperwork and
Yes.
request it be changed.
that's right.
So is this building recognized by the Historic Society? Because I understand that it was an old schoolhouse at one time, but when you look it up, it's just residential. It's been a residence for many years. Like,
I think somebody did confirm in a previous meeting, it is not a historical
No,
building.
but because no
It's
one
a
ever tried,
sentimental.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's-
maybe
It's in our
there's
his-
paperwork
it's in
to
our
say.
history book.
it's in our history book and everything,
Mhm.
the
It's in the
township history
opinion of
book.
Frederick, yeah.
so would that impact the grant money then, if it needs to be a historic?
If we're gonna restore
Restoration.
it back to that, yeah, it has to follow this guideline here.
Because
We-
otherwise, they won't give us the money.
But we'll have to pay it back,
Right.
one or the other. So that's why I was saying, we gotta make sure we stick to this line here and work with them. So Ms. Tackett was on it, she's been removed, I'm the chairman, so I told him, to put me on